Two Fires, why the title?
Well, the whole idea of making the record, the sort of songs I wanted to write from day one when I spoke to Don Gaiman, and the sort of songs that we tried to hone in on all the time were we really the formula that we were after was to combine all the things that influenced me, and the two major influences in my life were soul music and probably British rock, like the Deep Purples and Led Zeppelins and things like that. And they sort of represented the two things that burnt in me the most, and they were the two fires. And when I wrote with Holly Knight, and it was coincidental that we wrote a song called Caught Between Two Fires, and I said, this sums up, Two Fires is a great title for the album, because it sums up what I'm trying to say there.
I think this is the best studio singing you've ever done.
Yeah, well, I think I think one of my greatest strengths as a singer is still just power and intensity, but I think it's something that I finally learned that is not the be all and end all of my singing. There is a lot more to it, and doing that, I look back at what when I began to sing, what I listened to, and what I was brought up on, and where I learnt my chops from, and I realised that I'd sort of neglected a more soulful side of my voice possibly for a while now, and it was I guess really since Don Walker's songs, really, because a lot of Don songs had a lot of subtlety in the melody and in delivery, so it was it took me a while actually to sort of come around to the fact that I didn't have to belt every number out on 10 or 11, now I can do it on 9.
Yeah, it's also a matter of like having room to move as well.
Yeah, exactly. That goes with the arrangements and the choice of sounds. Once again, that a lot of that comes back on Don Gaiman's shoulders, and the fact that the feels that the rhythm section and the band put down on tape were so good that it left me enough room, and it was inspiring for me to sing. I felt like I could do a lot more than just get up and belt on top. I didn't feel like I had to supply the energy. I felt like there was energy there. I had to supply the melody.
Because I think one of the real strengths of Two Fires is that in many ways it's probably your most personal album since maybe even more so than Working Class Man.
Yeah, well, lyrically, I wrote 90% of the lyrics on the album, and it was that was something that was a conscious thing, because I figured that trying to deliver like a soulful delivery of anything, you have to relate to it personally, and it's much easier to although I can sing other people's lyrics, I've done it for years with Don Walker, and if the lyrics are great, they're great, but it is much easier to do that when you actually write the lyrics yourself.
And Little Darling's a song that you wrote about meeting your wife Jane. Yeah,
well, it was a song that I wrote about the first night I ever met Jane. It was which never really it never got past the first night, the whole story of the song, and that was quite an interesting night. It was Pooled Resources in Canberra in November 1979, and that was a tour that we did with the Angels, and it was it was the Dirty Pool, put together this tour, and it wasn't a big tour. I think it was a flop. We played some Cronulla or something, Cronulla Oval or something, and I think there was more hot dogs there than there was people. But the good thing of the tour was it was a great tour. We had a lot of fun, but I also met Jane in Canberra, and basically the song is about that night, and me and the band all being a bunch of yobs, trying to get back to these young girls' place in Canberra and getting thrown out, and it was we're actually more yobbo then than even the band was, because at that point we had a guy called Trevor Young, who used to be the drummer for the Coloured Balls, standing in playing drums with us, and Trevor's a great guy, killer drummer, but a bloody maniac, Jane to this day still hasn't seen him since. She just goes, who was that guy? He was an animal, and so it was, I think Trevor was half the reason we got chucked out.
And she threw you out?
She didn't actually throw us out. What she did was, we were all sitting around just getting drunk and being obnoxious, usual selves at parties, and she came up and said, "Oh, your cab's here," I was like, "Oh, didn't order one, did I?" It was, "Yes, you did." And boom, we're out the door and gone. So it was it was a funny night, and I ended up having to go and visit her for about 6 months before she finally ran away to Japan trying to escape from me.
That song also features Brian Setzer on it.
Yeah, well, the song we'd just about finished the song. We'd cut all the basic track in Rhinoceros in Sydney, and then we'd taken the track to Chapel Studios in Los Angeles, which is where we finished and mixed the album. And we were there, and it needed a little bit more. And during that period, I'd met Brian Setzer through Don Gaiman. Don and him were friends. You know, they'd done albums together. I think they'd done a solo album for Brian. And we became, friends. You know, we had, children swimming together in the pool there, and all. You know, we just, ended up, had similar interests in, soul music, rockabilly, fast cars and hot rods and stuff like that. So we just ended up getting on well, and we jammed at this club one night, and it worked really well together. And I just said, when do you want to come and play on the record? Oh, actually, I think he said, when do I play on your record? And I said, let me have a look. And we thought, well, definitely squeeze him in on a couple of tracks here. And when we got him in for Little Darling, we weren't sure. We didn't have that sort of that twangy guitar line written at all. There was nothing there as such. And he came in, he said, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Tuned his Gretsch down, and bang, I came with this line. It was like literally done in half an hour. It was fantastic. All right, let's do Little Darling.
This is called an unhandy man.
Yeah, Little Darling. You want to try your little slide, little deer?
Yes.
On any shirts. Hey, where were you? Where were you? Come on, always getting it together. Always with it getting it together. Does David Hirschfeld have to put up with this? This is it. This is it. You may sound bad, but that's okay. It could be the end of your career. Let's do it.
Killer track for me is When Your Love Is Gone, the ballad.
Well, I actually wrote that. Tony Brock was out here. It was a couple of years ago. We've had that song sitting on the burner for about 18 months, waiting for the album. And Tony was at my place, and he had the idea for the feel, and he put it down in I had a little 16 track downstairs at that time, and it sounded really good. And so we started working on it. And we wrote the song virtually then and there, one night at my house. When it came to do the album, we got it in, and we decided we were going to use a lot of machines with it because just the 808 is that's the sort of the congas and hand clap type groove, like Sexual Healing, sort of thing, Marvin Gaye. We established that sort of feel and just a combination of the machines, the type of keyboards that we put on it, and of course the live drums came up with this great feel. And it's a similar thing that happened on Little Darling, where it's sort of half machine, half live, and it worked out as a really good combination for us. And then on top of that, we added we got all the kids in, which was an amazing thing. My kids had said, look, we need some choir at the end of this, and Tony said, well, let's get a kids choir in. And at that point, we were all recording in LA, and my kids were there. I've got 4 kids, and Tony's got 2, and the engineer had 3. And I said, well, let's just get all our kids in. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be a trained choir as such. Let's get them in. And so we rehearsed them for a while. We had a tutor for our kids there, and she happened to play piano. And we got them all in. They're all excited. They're all going to do the takes. And they did one take, and it was good. They did the second take, and by about halfway through it, Jackie and the other young boys are starting to get bored and sort of look around, wiping chocolate on the windows, and so we couldn't get a third take out of them, I don't think. So we had to get them out, and it just added so much character and so much personality to the song. It was I think it's it turned out probably one of the best tracks on the album. Jackie, my son, he stars in this film clip a bit because he's the one that's always sticking his head through the bars going like this and stuff like that. I don't know where he gets it. But, well, what happened was we in each capital city, we just got we took my kids on tour with us, and we got all their friends. Like in Sydney, we had a whole bunch of Mark Opitz's kids and the Pollock children, and everybody, all our friends are up there singing their kids. And then in Melbourne, we had Gadinsky's and Wheatley's kids, and John Farnham's boy, and you name it, they're all in there. And we actually ended up filming the Melbourne show to make the film clip, and then and in the clip, all these kids feature, as a major part of the film clip. They're like him and Jackie, my boy, getting down and waving and bowing and blowing kisses, and him and Farnham's son doing this, doing the John Farnham. It was fantastic, and I know the kids loved it. Now, I'm getting prepared at the moment to go out for this club tour. My kids are going, well, why are we coming to rehearsals? What's happening? How can the show go on without us?
Was it hard to sort of put that tour together? I mean, you had a lot of people on it. You had all those children.
The tour itself was fairly hard to put together, just because it's such a major production. As far as Steve Swift, my lighting director, played a major part in the design and construction of that whole staging, and Peter McPhee, the production manager, had a hell of a lot to do with it. And then we had Nick Pitts, who's a tour manager who's been around for many years. He's worked with Elton John and you name it. So we had a lot of experienced people. Then we had Frontier touring as well behind that. So we had a lot of experience to draw on and a lot of effort to draw on. So it wasn't that difficult. It was just a matter of everybody doing knuckling down doing the job. I think the hardest bit was controlling the kids on the night. Because like I said, it was a bunch of different kids, and every night, and they get really excited. So my wife and all the wives and that had this job of settling the kids down. So they'd come in for sound check, go home, sort of keep them there till about 8 o'clock at night, get them down, and we had this dressing room set up with beds and videos with cartoons and shit like this. It was a nightmare, and they're all running around screaming, and you'd lose one, and but besides that, it was fine. Once they would force them all to lie down and have a rest till about 9-10 o'clock, and then get them up and get them ready for the show. But it was I think that was probably the hardest bit, was controlling the kids.
Love Is Enough.
Well, it's a song I sort of go on and hot and cold on that one all the time. It's a song that's been I've had for so many years now. I've had it for about 3 years, and I first wrote it with a guy called Marvin Enzioni, who's used to be the songwriter in Lone Justice, I think.
All right.
And he's actually, I think he's starting to get together and get a few songs around the place again. But it was much dirgier, and it was much it was a different title. It wasn't it was just similar chords. And then, but it was a good idea, basic idea. And then about 2 years later, I was writing with Chaz Sanford when we did I'd Die to Be With You and all that sort of stuff. And I played it to him, and he liked the idea, and he worked on it a bit, and he came up with, you can hear Chaz's arpeggiated, like Missing You. He wrote Missing You, so you can hear that sort of similarity in the arpeggiated, keyboard thing. But it still, the song wasn't complete. It didn't really have a chorus as such. Didn't sort of round itself off properly. And then at the just when I was getting prepared for this last record, I was I was writing with Dave Froggatt, who's an Australian guy, and Brent Thomas, another Australian. And we'd been writing a whole pile of stuff, a lot of stuff together. And I just happened to play them this idea, this ongoing idea. And they said, oh yeah, we can turn that around. We've got a chorus for that, no worries. And so they threw the bit in. So it ended up being like 5 or 6 writers. So it's a song that I'd sort of almost lost touch with as such. I'd lost confidence in, and it came really good for the record. But it's a song, when I hear the album, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, But it's definitely a great song, because I remember when we first wrote it. When I first wrote the idea with Marvin, I thought it was great. And then when Chaz and I were sitting there, it was like, yes, we've got something happening here, folks. This is good, So it was, it's definitely a great song.